So I suppose it's not really appropriate to say Happy Lent, so I will greet you today with wishes for a holy Lent, one filled with the good work of self-examination so that at the end of this Lenten journey, you can greet the holiest of weeks with hearts humbled to accept God's grace. This is week 1 of our Lenten series, Embracing the Uncertain. Throughout the next 6 weeks, we'll acknowledge and examine our discomfort in the face of life's uncertainty. There are only a few things in life that we consistently, 100%, feel certain about. We have unwavering faith about God's love and joy and peace and hope when life is good, but become less certain when chaos takes the reign of our lives. We have deep faith in God's love for us, yet equivocate when that same God calls us to love our neighbor with the same kind of abandon. It's great to look forward to the certain beauty of Easter resurrection, but Easter's power is compromised when we avert our eyes from the chaos and the uncertainty of the crucifixion. Uncertainty is part of human life because our lives are complex. No one is always right, nor always wrong. No one knows definitively where life will carry them. No one knows with complete certainty the ways that God is at work in the world today. Now, we do the best we can to understand, but Lent is about acknowledging our lack. It's about owning our shortcomings, because those often ignored corners of our own lives are the very places that God does the best work. That's where God's grace is revealed. So let's meet a man who found himself desperate enough to admit aloud his own uncertainty about his faith. And let's see how Jesus responded. It's in Mark chapter 9, verses 14 through 29. When Jesus, Peter, James, and John approached the other disciples, they saw a large crowd surrounding them and legal experts arguing with them. Suddenly, the whole crowd caught sight of Jesus. They ran to greet him, overcome with excitement. Jesus asked them, "What are you arguing about?" Someone from the crowd responded, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, since he has a spirit that doesn't allow him to speak. Whenever it overpowers him, it throws him into a fit. He foams at the mouth, grinds his teeth, and stiffens up. So I spoke to your disciples to see if they could throw it out, but they couldn't." Jesus answered them, "You faithless generation, how long will I be with you? How long will I put up with you? Bring him to me." They brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a fit. He fell on the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked his father, "How long has this been going on?" He said, "Since he was a child. It has often thrown him into a fire or into water, trying to kill him. If you can do anything, help us. Show us compassion." Jesus said to him, "If you can do anything, all things are possible for the one who has faith." At that, the boy's father cried out, "I have faith. Help my lack of faith." Noticing that the crowd had surged together, Jesus spoke harshly to the unclean spirit. "Mute and deaf spirit, I command you to come out of him and never enter him again." After screaming and shaking the boy horribly, the spirit came out. The boy seemed to be dead. In fact, several people said that he had died. But Jesus took his hand, lifted him up, and he arose. After Jesus went into the house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why couldn't we throw this spirit out?" And Jesus answered, "Throwing this kind of spirit out requires prayer." Now, I know there are plenty of you listening to this sermon who have felt the anguish of this father. I know that some of you have watched your children, parents, spouses suffer. I know that some of you have suffered physically, emotionally, mentally. Suffering is a reality of life. None of us can avoid it forever. I also know that you have great faith, and in your suffering that you have prayed and you have fasted and you have pleaded with God. You have sent prayer requests to prayer warriors far and wide. You have done everything you could think of to do. And even a few that you suspected were ridiculous, but you did them anyway. Still, things did not go as you hoped. Healing did not occur. You know how this father feels. You understand his desperation when he approaches Jesus. You know what it's like to feel like you're not enough. You're not smart enough, not good enough, not skilled enough, not faithful enough. There's nothing like having a sick child to make you feel like you are not enough. The man begs Jesus, if you can do anything, help us. Show us compassion. Some of us have uttered these very words in the darkest moments of life. I have heard these words read many different ways, and since the original writing nor the translated words can tell us the inflection of the Father, the tone with which any of this is read, the way that we read it says a lot more about us than it does about the man. I have certainly uttered, cried, maybe even shouted these words in different ways at different times in my life. Maybe you've uttered these words in all their forms. If you can do anything, if you can do anything, if you can, do anything. If you can do anything, if you can do anything. Whichever way he said it, it's clear that this father is desperate. And I find it interesting that Jesus kind of repeats his words back to him. My translation uses a question mark, but there's no punctuation in the original language. But I think it's fair to hear it with this question mark. If you can do anything? And Jesus continues, all things are possible for the one who has faith. And the father responds, I have faith. Of course he has faith. This man brings his ailing son some distance to find Jesus, whom he has heard about as a healer. That's faith. The man is arguing with legal experts as Jesus approaches. That's faith. The man willingly subjects himself and his son to public scrutiny in pursuit of healing. That is faith. And he tells us that this has been going on in his son's life since he was a child. Do you have any doubt that deep and anguished prayers have been said? I would imagine that this man has taken his son to the temple, to the doctors, to the healers. He has no doubt tried everything he knows how to do before he resorts to finding this itinerant preacher and healer, this last hope in which he has placed all of his faith. If this man's faith alone was enough to heal his son, then his son would already be healed. And still, his son is not healed. All things are possible for the one who has faith. I have faith. Help my lack of faith. That's raw honesty, vulnerable humility, desperation. He has as much faith as he knows how to have. I have faith. And he asks Jesus to fill in the gap. Help my lack of faith. We are not enough. We cannot be good enough to save ourselves, nor faithful enough to heal ourselves. Jesus said all things are possible for the one who has faith, and then who healed the son. Nobody could do it but Jesus. There is always a gap between human capacity and salvation. For those of us who are doing the Bible year for 2023, we have recently read through the book of Leviticus, which is filled with laws to keep the people clean or worthy of being in God's presence. And my friends, there are lots of capital offenses. I started to make a list of all the things that warranted a death sentence. Cursing your mother or father, adultery, a priest drinking alcohol, a woman who is raped in a city, worshiping another god, touching the Ark of the Covenant, and violating the Sabbath. And that list is not fully inclusive. There are lots more offenses that warrant death to the offender. There's another whole list of things that are not capital offenses, but that still prevent us from being worthy of being in the presence of God. At the end of reading that, you can't help but get the point. None of us can rely on our own goodness, our own obedience, our own willpower or fortitude or intellect to save us or to heal us. None of us. But that does not feel good to folks like us. It takes away our ability to control the outcomes of our own lives. We don't have control, and we don't like that. I certainly do not like that. We like certitude and would prefer clear accountability. If we check all the boxes, we're going to get the reward. If we're just disciplined enough, pious enough, pure enough, we can save ourselves. But we cannot save ourselves. We can have all the faith that a human could possibly render. We could walk the straightest line, trod the narrowest path, and it is not enough. We all need Jesus to fill in the gap. We all need Jesus to be the bridge between human frailty and divine goodness. That's the realization that the Father came to when he cried out, "I have faith, help my lack of faith." Well, there is pride in knowing that we gave it our best try, our hardest effort. There is freedom in surrendering to the reality that we aren't actually capable of accomplishing it. And there is joy in knowing that we will still get there by the grace of God. When the Father said, "I have faith, help my lack of faith," he was saying that he had given it his best effort. He knew that he was not capable, and he was asking Jesus to bridge the gap between suffering and healing. And by surrendering in this way, the Father relinquished the years-long agony of trying to do something he was incapable of doing, healing his son. There's freedom in that. Maybe you're waging a battle that you cannot win alone. And by surrendering in this way, the Father no longer carried the weight of blame and fault. He knew that he had done everything he could, and he surrendered the outcome to Jesus. There's freedom in that. When we finally lay our burdens at the feet of Jesus, we know that they are in good hands. Things may not go the way we want. Things may look absolutely disastrous from our perspective, but healing, spiritual or physical, mortal or immortal, always comes. What do you need to surrender to the care of Jesus? We are not enough. On our best days, we have a mighty faith. On other days, we have loads of questions. But none of us can honestly claim, "I have faith," without also claiming, "Help my lack of faith." We are finite people who love an infinite God. So we are incapable of fully comprehending the infinite God with complete certainty. We don't need perfect, certain faith. We need enough faith to believe that Jesus will bridge the gap between who we are and who God is. I have faith. Help my lack of faith. I'd like to close this sermon with a prayer from Thomas Merton. He was a 20th century Trappist monk. So please pray with me. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does, in fact, please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Amen.